Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, I went to Olympia to testify, and holy cow, the stuff I heard while I was there. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I have a story I've never told before, and I have to keep parts of it anonymous, but it's going to help you understand what's going on in Minnesota. So today, we all got excited, right? Because it's a true example of FAFO, and I can't say what that means, but it basically means screw around and find out. That's what happens. And the Trump administration said, if you storm into a church while services are going on to protest, if you storm onto private property, you have violated multiple laws, and we will hold you accountable for them. Now, mind you, Minnesota has the same laws. Minneapolis has the same laws. The county has the same laws. None of them chose to do anything about it. I can't believe that as a conservative, I am waiting for the Trump administration to come do things. I am cheering the federal government to be helping out. I cannot believe that. We are in a backwards world where a conservative wants the federal government to be helping out. Now, before I tell you the story of my particular relationship to these kinds of cases, let's go over the details. Federal authorities have arrested two anti-ICE agitators after a mob stormed a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced Thursday that Nakima Levy Armstrong, Chantal Louise Allen, and William Kelly are the suspects. Now, when you say suspects, I know we have to say alleged, but they were on video. They were bragging about it. They were happy about it. So saying alleged, yeah, you don't really need to be doing that. You do, but you don't. FBI Director Kash Patel said Armstrong's arrest was in connection with a violation of the FACE Act, which prohibits interfering with the exercise of religion at a place of worship, according to Fox News. Armstrong is expected to appear today before a U.S. district judge. Allen is charged with conspiracy to deprive rights, the Department of Homeland Security said. And just days after publicly daring the Department of Justice to arrest him, agitator William Kelly was also arrested. Kelly stormed the city's church service in St. Paul, berated congregants, and bragged about it in video. It's all there. Bondi wrote on X, minutes ago at my direction, HSI and FBI agents execute an arrest in Minnesota. So far, we have arrested Nakima Levy Armstrong, who allegedly played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack. Oh, by the way, she's in more trouble, by the way. So apparently she runs these activist organizations, and somebody found out she takes a larger salary than the organization has the budget space for. So there's the amount of money that goes out to programs, and there's her salary. And her salary far exceeds the amount of taxpayer money that goes out to programs. Way to put yourself under the microscope, especially when everybody's looking for fraud out of Minnesota. So she got arrested, and then Bondi wrote, we will share more updates as they become available. Listen loud and clear. We do not tolerate attacks on our places of worship. Now, this is something, I'm going to speak from experience for a second, was that after October 7th, when you had all the lunatics protesting and shutting down freeways and shutting down highways, we met with the Seattle Police Department on behalf of the synagogues in the area. And when we met with the Seattle Police Department, talking about shooters, talking about bomb threats, and I said to the police department, I said, guys, we have to be concerned about protesters showing up. Thank God none have. But that's something that's a very real concern. I need to get a message out to my friends in the church community. SPD, any police department in any blue city, blue state, blue county is underfunded and doesn't have enough officers. You need to take your security seriously. Thank God this was just a protest, but we've had shootings in the past before. And I know, and I've said this before, I know it hurts when you have to give up. We want to be welcoming to everybody. We want to be there for everybody. We want to have open doors. You can have open doors and still have a greeter there, still have a guard there, still have people there, and still train that person to know what questions to ask. Look, I'm not going to tell you what questions we ask, but when they don't recognize you at the door of my synagogue, you're getting the third degree, and we don't feel bad about it at all. You know who's supposed to be there. You know who's not supposed to be there. You know what a guest looks like. You know what somebody who's trying to cause trouble looks like. That's what you got to do. You got to harden your facilities at churches the same way we harden our facilities at synagogues. This time it was a protest. We've had shootings in the past. Don't you want to make sure you're prepared if, God forbid, somebody wants to do something terrible to your institution? We did interviews, and you can find them over at kvi.com. You can find them on my social media with security experts, including Jeff Slotnick, about how to harden your facilities. But then there's something else about this. And this is where it gets a little dicey. A lot of you are saying, Ari, I am thrilled that all these activists who stormed a church got arrested. I am thrilled that the people who caused those children to be crying in the pews because they were scared and now may not want to go back to church, the people who did that are arrested. I'm thrilled about that. What about Don Lemon? What about him? Because he was leading this bunch. Now, here's where it gets sticky. They asked for charges against Don Lemon. And I know people are saying, oh, the judge was a lefty and his wife gave money or worked with Keith Ellison and it's all in on the fix. Yeah, but you have a sticky situation when it comes to journalists. If somebody calls themselves a journalist, you have a sticky situation with the First Amendment. Was Don Lemon actually leading them? Or was Don Lemon covering this stuff? And now it gets squishy, and now it gets sticky, and you have First Amendment problems. I will tell you this, and I have not said this before, is that when I work with different law enforcement agencies in our area and around the country, when we're dealing with the Hamasniks, from time to time, there are pro-Hamas journalists, and they are doing the same bad things as the protesters standing on freeways, blocking traffic. But as long as it's nonviolent, you get into a very sticky situation where they can always claim they were just covering the event. Now, I know some of you are yelling and screaming and saying, Ari, what about all the people who are covering January 6th? I'm not saying there's not a double standard, guys. I'm not. But if you are a prosecutor, if you want to make examples, you want to have a slam dunk case. And you don't want to get into squishy areas because oftentimes these guys who are all involved in the same action get the same group of lawyers. And all you have to do is get one juror, just one, to doubt the case, and poof, the person gets off. You do not want to give them that opportunity. Do I want Don Lemon behind bars in jail for what he did? Absolutely. What he did was inexcusable. Don Lemon showed up to these protesters, brought them coffee, brought them bagels, brought them donuts, was organizing with them, was video streaming the whole thing. But he can still claim he was a journalist. He can. And that's where things get sticky. And I'm not saying this because some people consider me a journalist when I consider myself an opinion guy. I'm not saying it's because of my First Amendment journalist rights. That's not why I'm saying this. I'm saying is because you want a slam dunk case on these guys so people don't do it again. And when you introduce doubt into a case, that's when you have a problem. You agree with me? You disagree with me. You give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because even though you have Don Lemon dead to rights, it's going to cause a doubt. According to Fox News, a federal magistrate judge on Thursday rejected the Justice Department's attempt to bring charges against former CNN anchor Don Lemon. Now, here's where I'm back on your side, everybody. The judge, if they want to bring the charges and jeopardize their own case, that's their prerogative. They have him dead to rights. The judge should have allowed the case to go forward here. They probably would have lost with a jury. So I think the judge is biased. Lemon live-streamed left-wing agitators who stormed St. Paul City's church under suspicion that its pastor had collaborated with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Lemon told viewers that the freedom to protest is what the First Amendment is all about. He is expected to face charges after Attorney General Pam Bondi warned that no one is above the law on the heels of the church incident. The Justice Department could find other avenues to charge Lemon, CBS News reported. The magistrate's decision, which we found about today, reported actions confirm the nature of Don's First Amendment protected work this weekend in Minnesota as a reporter. So you see, already the judge, whether you think the judge is biased, whether his wife has something to do with the AG, they're using the same argument that a defense attorney, and I'm sure Don Lemon can afford a high-priced defense attorney, would be using in court. And I can only say this so many times. I want Don Lemon behind bars. I think he deserves to be behind bars for what he did. But I don't think you have the case. Now, Mary says over on the text line, would it make a difference if he was being paid by the group that organized it? Maybe. For me, the biggest issue was what Don did with the pastor. The pastor's trying to take care of his flock while you lunatics invaded and Don Lemon is trying to get an interview. I got a problem with that. It still might be journalism. Now, if they paid him and brought him along to make a documentary about it, now you get squishy. Is a documentarian a journalist? This is more squishy again. Good question, though, Mary. Absolutely. Rob says no one is above the law except Democrats and libs. Okay, here's the thing, though, Rob, not to call you out, but they literally arrested everybody else. Don Lemon, the one judge, said no, and it's because of the First Amendment. That's the sticky part. The 360 says hopefully they charge that phony journalist Don Lemon too. I agree with you. I want him charged. I do. But you get into the sticky situation with the journalists. Now, according to the Post-Millennial, the magistrate who refused to sign off on charges brought by the DOJ against Don Lemon for storming the church has been identified as Magistrate Judge Douglas Miko, and his wife reportedly works as the Assistant Attorney General in Keith Ellison's office. Miko's wife, Caitlin Miko, has also shown support for anti-ICE protests on LinkedIn, according to a report from Jack Posobiec. So now we see there might be bias in the case. So rather than saying it's the journalism thing, Judge, you know what we should be saying? You should be saying you should recuse yourself because you have a personal connection to it. After the DOJ sent charges against Lemon for alleged FACE Act violations, Miko reportedly refused to sign off on the charges. Lemon has denied involvement with the organizers, even though he brought them coffee and bagel and donuts. Do you think Don Lemon was just driving around Minneapolis going, who can I bring bagels to today? Who can I bring coffee to today? He's not Ari Hoffman, who gives out Krispy Kreme donuts to everybody. What's he doing driving around doing that? He knew where they were going to be. He was coordinating with them. They wanted him. They wanted him there to document everything because that's how they're going to fundraise for their legal bills, and they're going to rankle everybody up and get them all excited. He claimed he didn't coordinate with the group, but he clearly did, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is that the journalism issue, and that's a First Amendment issue as well. Does that mean you get to trespass on private property? No. So press charges on him for trespassing. He doesn't get to do that. You don't get to go in there. I understand. You want an open and shut case. I understand this makes everybody furious. And some of you are yelling at your radios right now going, Ari, I can't believe this. Guys, I'm trying to call balls and strikes here. You want him, get him on trespassing charges. He should not have been there. Just because somebody's doing something, you don't have to go along with them. But you want the slam dunk case. You want that. Now, if they caused the event, if they incited the event, then there's something more there. If you can prove that this whole thing was Don Lemon's idea and he wasn't just there covering an event, you might have a case. But it just takes one juror in a St. Paul jury pool, which means you're pulling out of a blue city, blue state, blue county. You're pulling all it out of there. It just takes one juror to lose a case. Just one. Just one. Here from the 206, are private lawsuits the answer? What if he joined a Greenpeace group to film them burning Humvees and other SUVs that cause global warming? Now, violence, that's a different issue. So, for example, there were journalists, and I'm using air quotes, who were with Hamas on October 7th, but they were participating in it. It doesn't mean they were doing the massacre. They're riding on the motorcycles on the backs with those guys. They were participating in it. We have the video of Don Lemon before they went in there. He brought them bagels. He brought them coffees. He brought them donuts. I agree with you. He was helping to organize this. He knew what was going on. He knew what was going down. I agree with you. But you want the other activists on the slam dunk cases. That's what you want. You want them all on the slam dunk cases. And I'll tell you something else. Just because the judge doesn't sign this doesn't mean Don Lemon's out of the woods yet. I give Pam Bondi and Kash Patel a lot of credit that they'll find a way to get Don Lemon. They'll get him in court. But the question is, do they get a conviction? And that's what you want out of that. That's what you want out of it. You want the convictions. So these other activists, you've got them dead to rights. Absolutely. This First Amendment thing, look, it's the good and the bad with the First Amendment. If I want to say whatever I want on this radio station, that means that the lunatics over at The Stranger get to write whatever they want. That's the good and the bad. If I want to say whatever I want on Twitter, Khomeini, the Ayatollah, gets to say whatever he wants on Twitter. If Jonathan Cho wants to go places and cover stories, Don Lemon gets to go places and cover stories. As I said, you've got him on trespassing, for sure. You've got him on violations of the FACE Act, but the question is he going to play the journalist card? And that's exactly what this judge is using. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, day 3 of the ICE scandal that was completely manufactured at Seattle Public Schools. We'll tell you the latest the media is spinning when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We will get to your calls. We will get to your texts. But first, we're on day 3 of this insane story about ICE not actually being at Seattle Public Schools, but 6 of them still went into lockdown. As we discussed yesterday, a post from a kid on the Roosevelt High School yearbook Instagram account may have been what triggered this entire thing. But the question was it done intentionally? It was activist week here in Seattle. You had Martin Luther King Day. You had a whole bunch of people out and marching that day. You had a whole bunch of people out and marching on Tuesday where a whole bunch of kids walked out of class. Shock, shock. Kids take an opportunity to leave class. Hey, I went to every rally there was when I was in high school. Because guess what? It was an opportunity to get an excused absence from class because you were allowed to do that kind of stuff. You mean kids want to ditch school? Shock, shock. The media is milking this for all it's worth. The first day was ICE around? Can we confirm if they were actually here? The second day, the outrage. The third day, the scared children, the upset parents. Nothing happened. Literally, nothing happened. We have no confirmed reports from anybody that ICE was in the vicinity of any of these places. Seattle Police Department has no confirmed reports of ICE sightings near the schools. Not one. I'm starting to begin to believe that this was a stunt. I'm starting to begin to believe that somebody said, if we can make everybody scared enough, we can get the media's attention, because how many people are going to see these headlines again and again and again? Saw this one from Como. Neighbors and families in South Seattle remained uneasy a day after 6 Seattle public schools temporarily placed students under shelter-in-place protocols following unconfirmed reports of immigration enforcement activity near the schools. We don't think it even happened. And we're still talking about this in the media. It's not just Como. Every media outlet had their own version of this story. They all did. Why are we still talking about this? It is literally a nothing burger. Look, I get it. The people at Seattle Public Schools were probably the kids who thought there was a monster in their closet growing up. And mom and dad had to come into the room and scare off the monster. And I don't mean like the Monsters, Inc. monsters. I mean the big, imaginary, scary ones. At this point, you're literally just trying to scare everybody else for your own political agenda. It's going to be a thing. We're going to do this once a week. We're going to do this once a day. How much crazier is... I don't remember them talking this much about shootings that happened on campus.
You know, when I was in school, it was always bomb threats.
Bomb threats. That was the 90s, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
80s.
The 90s.
We're
80s,
close
90s,
enough.
yeah.
80s, 90s. It was always bomb threats.
And it was always a student doing it just to shut school down. So
yeah, always. They had a test that day or something.
These kids are clever, and so they'll find anything, anything to get out of school. So it wouldn't shock me at the least.
I like that approach. I remember after 9/11, holy cow, after 9/11, you could say a terrorist was anywhere, and in New York, I remember.
I bet.
Okay, so my wife went to school near the Empire State Building. That's where their dorm was near the Empire State Building. And I remember I'm hanging out in the lobby because the boys aren't allowed upstairs in the girls' dorm, obviously. And who knows these days? I could have identified as a girl and gone up there. So I'm hanging out down the lobby, and some dude comes running into the lobby with a bullhorn from the boys' campus, which is all the way on the other side of town. You got to evacuate the building. There's a bomb threat at the Empire State Building. And I'm like, that's like 3 blocks away, dude. But if it falls over, it's going to crush. I go, did it explode? You got to evacuate. You got to evacuate now with the bullhorn. I'm like, all right, crazy man, chill out. So in Seattle, Kevin, great point. You could just say, ICE is in the parking lot, shut down school for the day, no tests.
And kids, they don't care. Whatever, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're basically like, oh, here's another way of doing this.
Yes.
It's like whether or not it's, political or whatever, they'll take whatever tools they can.
I'll tell you what, parents, if your kids have something clever like this that they've been doing, don't do that. Don't do that. But if you know of something that's going on in your kid's school like this, where they're using the woke insanity to get out of class, let me know. Hey, I used to use my parents' divorce all the time. It was the school shrink, I realized, really wanted to help us, right? So the school shrink found out my parents were getting divorced and goes, do you need to talk about it? I'm like, no, I'm good. They're like, well, if you need to. I mean, even if you have a test or something, come to my office. Light bulb. Wait a second. If I want to get out of a test, I just need to go to your office and say I'm sad or something? Oh, great. Let's do that. So I almost got busted one time where I'm like, oh, it's really rough. My father moved out. And they're like, wait a second. Didn't your father move out like a month ago? Oh, they reconciled. Almost had this stuff going. So I was working this for a long time. I was not the best student. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Terry in Parkland. Terry, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. I just had a comment about the Mr. Limon story there.
Yes.
My comment is, was he truly acting as a journalist? Because most journalists are, they're supposed to be neutral. Most journalists who are supposed to be neutral don't hand out donuts and bagels and coffee to people there. So what's your comment and take on that?
So let's go with this for a second. Do you think I'm a journalist?
Yeah.
Am I neutral?
No.
Okay.
I was going to say, did it really take that long to answer?
Okay, it should have taken that long. I know you're like deciding what you think I want to hear, but let's be real about this for a second, okay? So, yes, I write stories. Yes, they are biased. Yes, I admit my bias. And me personally, I would prefer that everybody's biased when they're journalists as opposed to them saying, oh, we're unbiased on CNN. Give me a break. You know what I think the best debate would be? You take me, you take the people from The Stranger, and you do the next Seattle mayor's debate. That's what you do. I think that's how you get the real questions. But Don Lemon, I can't believe I'm giving him benefit of the doubt. For anybody who's watching the show on the live streams right now, you will see there's this thing that says Talk Radio 570 KVI on my microphone. It's right here. It's called a microphone flag. Don Lemon's got one of those with his dumb network when he's in the church. Does that make him a journalist, Harry?
I don't know, man. I don't think he's a journalist, period.
Okay, well, just because we think he sucks doesn't mean he's not a journalist, right? The guy was on CNN for years, right? So take Megyn Kelly for a minute. Megyn Kelly does a podcast now. She was on Fox. She was on NBC. She was on all these different networks. Is she a journalist?
She used to be.
Okay. Yeah, that's the problem. And that's what I'm saying. See, Terry, you and I are on the same page about this. But now imagine trying to do this with a jury. Because even a bad defense attorney is going to go, look at that video right there. You see that thing on the microphone? It's called a flag. And it's got Don Lemon's network on it. That means he was working as a journalist. And it just takes one juror to sink that case. You see where I'm going with this, Terry?
Yeah. Well, what about doing where they take it out of the area because it's biased?
A change of venue? A change of venue? I don't think. Okay, so let's say you have a case in Seattle, and you say, I want to change a venue. Where are you going to go? Bellevue? You see the problem? I don't think they're going to take your case to Eastern Washington. You know what I mean? I appreciate the conversation, Terry. This was a great way to illustrate the problems with this case. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Robin Lakewood says sour lemons. I like that one. When we come back, my friends, we've got Special Prosecutor Smith in the hot seat today on Capitol Hill. We got some crazy audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Now, I know everybody wants clips of Jim Jordan roasting Jack Smith today. Jack Smith was the special prosecutor who was appointed to go after President Trump for the document stuff. I know you want that. But first, let's revisit this for a second. I find the timing of all this very, very entertaining. What happened earlier this week? Bill and Hillary Clinton were supposed to be testifying before Congress, and they said no. So now the question is whether or not they're going to be held in contempt of Congress. Do you think that the Clintons will ever see the inside of a jail cell the way Steve Bannon did? Look, I am not a Steve Bannon fan. I don't like War Room. I'm not the biggest Steve Bannon fan at all. I think he was a terrible White House chief of staff. I got other feelings about Steve Bannon. But the guy did not deserve to go to jail when you don't send anybody else to jail for the same thing. Okay? You got Hunter Biden who refused to go. Now you got the Clintons refusing to go. Either you arrest everybody and send them to jail, or you arrest nobody and send them to jail, and then what's the point of a congressional subpoena? Now, Jack Smith is the one who said, let's go raid Mar-a-Lago. So the Democrats freaking out about holding a former president in contempt like Bill and Hillary Clinton. Nothing's ever been done like that before. You raided the former first lady's underwear drawer. You raided the former first son's Xbox. For what? For the documents? Okay, let's be real about the documents. We realize there's a huge problem with the way we manage documents in Washington, D.C. First of all, how much paper is there anymore? Aren't we doing everything digitally? But second of all, where do we find documents? We found them next to Joe Biden's green Corvette, a car which his drug addict son had access to, which we see him driving around in. For all we know, he used classified documents for rolling doobies. Let's be real about this. And then we find out every politician, Republican, Democrat, has documents at their house that may or may not have been classified. Personally, my question is, why the hell do all these people have classified documents? Now, do you think President Trump was going to do anything nefarious with these documents, or Joe Biden for that matter? Now, I can make a better case for Joe Biden doing something nefarious, but let's just say he wanted to bring home some documents and souvenirs. Let's just say for a minute. Let's ignore the fact that the Chinese had access to them in that space they were using with Joe Biden over at the university. Let's ignore that for a second. Okay, people like souvenirs. I can imagine President Trump. He's giving a tour to the CNN person who was in Mar-a-Lago. All right, let me show you this. This is the greatest picture of Iran. You want to see their nuclear facilities? Let me show you. Look at this. This is Kim Jong-un's house. It's his house. I could bomb it at any time. It'll be great. We'll blow it right up. Check it out. I assume President Trump's like that. I got things around my house where my wife goes, oh, God, don't take out that picture and show it off again. Everybody's seen it a million times, all right? I assume President Trump and I have some crossover there. So you got to wonder if this was a political prosecution. And I believe it 100% was. I believe that if President Trump had lost the election, he would be in jail right now. I truly, truly believe that. And here's something else. I believe they're going to go after him again when this is all over. They've already said that if the Democrats win the midterms, they're going to try and impeach Trump again. This was a political prosecution. Let's not forget, why'd they drop the charges on Joe Biden? Because he would have been seen as elderly and forgetful, and they wouldn't have had a good case, going back to what I was talking about earlier, where it just takes one juror. Right? Joe Biden was too senile to prosecute. So here you got the same issue, and it looks like everybody else had the same issue. Clearly, this is something that Jack Smith was doing politically. Now, there's a lot of clips of them ripping him to shreds, but there's two that really stand out. They spent $35 million of your taxpayer money on this case. $35 million that went absolutely nowhere. Can he account for that?
How much more money did you pay confidential people we don't know about, with American tax money going after the guy we elected president?
My recollection regards the $20,000, which was not a payment from me. It was me approving a payment by the FBI to a confidential human source who was reviewing video and photographic
Who's the source?
evidence. I do not know the identity of the source.
How many other payments went to this source or other sources?
As I sit here, I do not know the answer to that question. My role as special counsel,
$35 million, and you're giving money to people the country doesn't know who they are, and you're giving their hard-earned money to these folks? The main question I have, too, with this is, why'd you have to do it? You subpoenaed bank records from the RNC, phone records from members of Congress. You got subpoenas for bank records for people sitting right there in the front row. Why did you have to pay people for information when you could subpoena them and get it?
Boom. Roasted. Really, why'd you have to pay anybody? It's a subpoena. You have subpoena power. Why do you have to pay anybody for their testimony? Right there, it makes it look like a sham investigation. I got subpoenaed one time for a real estate thing I was involved in for half a minute. You gotta go. You go. Otherwise, you're in contempt of court and can deal with fines and can deal with all this other stuff. Luckily, it was one and done with a deposition. You have subpoena power from the federal government. Why do you need to be paying anybody? But here's something else. You're the special prosecutor in charge of the investigation. Are you not a lawyer? Did you not prep for this? All he had to say was, I cannot divulge the identity of my sources, just like a journalist does. Instead, he said, he doesn't know? You're going before Congress. You're not going to brush up? Saying, I forget, is still a better response than I don't know, because then you look like a partisan hack. That whole segment right there should have been like, yes, this whole thing was completely political. Do you think Jack Smith will ever see the inside of a jail cell? My guess is no, but I want to know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, there's another clip here that was curious to me. So we know he was prosecuting President Trump, and we know this was a political prosecution. Was there anybody else he was going after during this whole thing?
Did you attempt to work with Lois Lerner and the IRS to investigate nonprofits?
What I did was I asked for a meeting with the IRS about nonprofits.
So the simple answer is yes.
Well, I didn't ask to work with Ms. Lerner. They sent Ms. Lerner. That's the person who came to this meeting. I met her once.
And they went after Second Amendment groups, correct? If you remember correctly, that's what was the offshoot of it, that Second Amendment groups that tried to gain nonprofit status, they were slow-rolled through the IRS. Do you recall that?
Separate from this, there was an investigation of that that I was a part of in public integrity.
Did you, you prosecuted Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. This was asked earlier. You prosecuted him, correct?
I was part of the prosecution, yes.
And that ended up with a, that decision ended up being unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court, correct?
That is correct.
Do you remember what they're talking about? Do you remember that whole mess under Barack Obama where they were going after and investigating conservative nonprofits, pro-Israel nonprofits, anything that may have been against the Obama regime? Do you remember all that fun when they were investigating those guys? We know he's a partisan hack. Why else would they appoint him? Sure, pick the guy who had no qualms whatsoever about going after people because of their political ideology. This whole thing was a sham investigation. I think he belongs in jail. I think he belongs in jail for abuse of his powers. And you know this was political prosecution, but do you think he's ever actually going to see the inside of a jail cell? My guess is he's not going to be bunking in with Bill and Hillary. Oh, wait, I forgot the disclaimer. I have no evidence that could convict Hillary or Bill Clinton in a court of law. I love my life. I am very happy with my life. I am not suicidal at all. Sorry, forgot the disclaimer before talking about the Clintons. We know what happens to people who talk about the Clintons. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, you will not believe what the University of Washington spent your tax dollars on. You're going to lose it. I promise you. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. We've discussed many times, people say, oh, Ari, you're anti the LGBTQIA plus minus sign, divided sign, amperstamp, exclamation point, question mark community. No, they just have a really silly name. It's not being against it. I don't like my taxpayer dollars going to that kind of stuff. Look, I don't ask for taxpayer dollars for my synagogue. That's not what we do. We need something, we go fundraise for it. When you use my tax dollars for something I don't agree with, that's when I have issues with it. Do I care about what goes on in that community? No, what you do in your house is your business. I don't like when you spend my taxpayer dollars on it. It's that simple. Do you remember that a lot of people in our world, we did this as a when the right gets it wrong segment, were really, really mad because over at the Mopop, they had a drag summer course. And I said, they're a private institution. If they don't get money from the government, they can run whatever program they want to run. You don't have to go. That's what makes America great. That's one of the many things that make America great. You can do what you do. I do what I do. We had that discussion about the furry bar the other day. Not my jam. We can make fun of it because the videos are ridiculous. But I'm not saying shut it down. You want to go live that lifestyle, go live that lifestyle. That is your business. But when you're using our taxpayer dollars for it, or money that's supposed to be going to education for it, then I got a problem. Now, this is a report from Paris Apodaca. I want to make sure I get the last name right. Apodaca. Paris Apodaca. Very nice gal who's over at the University of Washington for campus reform. She's their Washington correspondent. She sent me this article today. At the University of Washington in Seattle, the Service and Activity Fee Committee allocates $651,005 to an LGBT-based center for fiscal year 2026. The Q Center, operating programs for the LGBTQIA community, increased by $18,500 for the previous year. What are you spending the money on? Let me ask you that. The SAF is required for students to pay, depending on credits, graduate level, and campus fees, could range from $55 to $277. Anywhere between 2,350 to 11,836 students fund the Q Center. Why are we funding this, and why do you have to pay fees for it to go to the Q Center? If an LGBTQIA group wants to fund the Q Center, more power to them. You don't have to go. But why with these fees are you funding something like that? Apparently they have a class called Queering a World-Class Education. We empower students and staff to thrive personally, socially, and academically. Guided by values of justice, respect, and liberation, the Q Center is a space where all individuals can find connection, healing, and freedom to be their authentic selves. Do you guys fund the Hillel out at University of Washington? How about the Chabad House? Does that stuff get the funding too? Why are we wasting the money on something like this? If they want to fundraise for themselves, fine. Programming and events hosted by the center range from Q book clubs, game night with a Y, gender discussion group, and access to free gender-affirming items, including binders and tucking underwear and other things I don't feel comfortable reading because I kind of hit my line with all that. Elliot Myers, a sophomore history major at the University of Washington, told Campus Reform, I have no desire to personally fund LGBTQ student programs or any other services I don't use. I think students should be allowed to have certain fees waived. If they don't want to use the service, the fee would pay for it. Okay, now you're on to a little bit of a problem. I don't use the gym, but you need one on campus. So just because I wasn't physically active doesn't mean I can't just say, oh, I don't want my tuition money going to the gym. It should be here. This is taxpayer money for something that is ideological, something that is political. Why are we funding it with mandatory fees? Here's something else. This only covers a portion of the amount of money they get. How much other money are they getting from the university? You want to know why universities are so expensive? Because every single one of them thinks they need a Q Center, and every other center for that matter. You don't need a Quidditch club at your university. And it doesn't need to be paid for by your taxpayer dollars. You are playing an imaginary game invented in a fantasy novel about wizards and warlocks and witches and goblins and everything else. You can't even fly on that broomstick. Look, if I would have a Star Wars, a Star Trek club at school, I had to pay for it. I had to get the snacks. I had to rent the movies. I had to make sure I had a big enough TV so everybody could enjoy it. That was on me. No funding for it. So why are we funding things like this? Myers continued to tell campus reform. University of Washington already has in place regarding dining plans for off-campus students. I believe it would only be fair to extend this choice for other costs. Exactly. So the school doesn't provide kosher meals. I'm not going to say you have to go find the kosher meals here around here. No, I got to go find it myself. I understand. Recently, the Q Center also launched a new partnership that uses its resources to support international students, the Rainbow Circle program. The Q Center and Circle, the Center for International Relations, Cultural Leadership Exchange, provide a safe space to explore their intersectioning Wait a minute. Are you just providing a hookup space on campus? Because you have Fraternity Row. You don't need a safe hookup space on campus. You got a whole bunch of fraternities to do whatever you want to do up on that campus. I used to do property management for one of the fraternities. I know what goes on in those buildings. I'll never forget my first time there. I'm trying to figure out who to meet with. I knock on the front door. Some girl does the walk of shame out the front door. It was bad. It wasn't good. And I'm like, wow, I'm like really in the movies here. You need a safe space on campus to explore that stuff. You know, we used to just find a closet somewhere in high school. I'm not going to get into more about that. Unbelievable the kind of stuff our tax dollars are being used for. The university website continues to describe how the program provides all international students with a chance to connect and support one another and find new ways to learn to do so. Oh, that's what we're calling the time in the closet now. New ways to learn to do so. I didn't know there was funding available in that. I would have had a much more productive social life in high school if I knew there was funding available, or in college for that matter. Oh, dear. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, the initiative killer bill, you'd be surprised who's actually trying to stop this. And guess what? They have a D next to their name. We'll tell you who it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, jobs report out of Washington are really bad, just as the national unemployment rate is going down and making Washington look bad. But before we get to any of that, my friends, I was in Olympia today, and I was testifying about something that was personal to me, a little bit more personal to me. We'll play that audio for you later in the show, because what I was testifying about for our purposes here on this show doesn't matter so much to you versus what the Democrats did. While I was testifying, anybody they disagreed with, they cut that time limit right away. We don't want to hear what you have to say. Some people even cut short on time. Other people, they got as much time as they wanted as long as they supported their narrative. Now, what I found fascinating was something that happened this week in the legislature. We have the initiative killer. What's the initiative killer? We have this bill where the Democrats in Olympia, they want to make sure that Let's Go Washington isn't able to run initiatives anymore. They want to make sure that you don't get to sign those petitions. Excuse me, that organizations like Let's Go Washington don't get to run initiatives anymore, that you don't get to sign those things anymore. They want to make it as hard as possible because look at the success that Let's Go Washington has had. They made them say they don't want an income tax right before they're trying to pass an income tax. They got us parental rights. They had to mess within the legislature to make it not work anymore. Now we got to do it again. We got police pursuits reinstated. The successes, the wins, the Democrats don't want to be dealing with this, so they're trying to shut it down. Who's trying to shut it down? Now, what's fascinating is all these union bosses were the ones testifying about it. SEIU, teachers' unions, they're the ones trying to stop it. And let's be real about this. This is voter suppression. That's what it is. The voters want to have a say and say, we don't like your policies. We want to shut this down. The people who created our Constitution put this in place where they go, hey, you don't like what's going on. Here is your way to stop it. And the Democrats don't want you to stop them. But what's fascinating to me is who's for this thing and who's against this thing. So we know that the head of SEIU, which is a local union, we know that they are radical activists. For me, SEIU has a special place in my heart, and I will tell you why. At my college, they used some kind of company to remove asbestos that wasn't a union company of the buildings. So, of course, the unions got to come out there and protest. And they blew up a giant inflatable rat outside my college. Now, college kids, what are you going to do with a giant inflatable rat? And this was before we had cell phones. Take pictures with it. Make fun of it. In fact, the logo for my alumni WhatsApp group of the years we were there is a picture of the rat. I don't know what happened to all those disposable cameras we used to have, but somebody saved a picture of the rat and put it online and uploaded it. We didn't really have online pictures. Those were the early days of online pictures where it takes you all night to download an image. It takes you like 2 days to download a song, and then your mom picks up the phone over the dial-up modem, and you hear that, Mom, I was trying to download the theme song to ER, and you ruined it. Okay, was that just me? I assume other people had this experience. Great. We all got it. We all know what we're talking about here. Fine. SEIU were the ones who were at my college campus, they were also the ones who were the kitchen workers and the janitors and the security guards, and they went on strike one time. And what's funny was they're out in the streets chanting all day, and we're loving every minute of it. We went out there and protested with them because it was fun. You're talking about a whole bunch of people in Washington Heights. Washington Heights, very Dominican. Those people know how to protest. We had a great time. There were food trucks. We couldn't eat them because they weren't kosher, but they had some great music out there. Lots of fun. Now, mind you, SEIU out here, nowhere near as much fun. They're the ones who want to get rid of your voting rights. They're the ones who want boys to play in girls' sports. And for some reason, they're up about whatever the liberal cause is because they're literally just the stormtroopers for the left. They're the activists for the left. The teachers' unions, they're just as bad. You want to say, protect girls' sports. These are your students. But no, that's not what they want. So what are they doing? They are the ones testifying against having the initiative process and saying how we need more and more and more and more restrictions on the initiative process. My problem with the initiative process right now is that you go through all this, you get the signatures, you get it on the ballot, everybody votes on it, you funnel all this money into it, and then at the end, the Supreme Court can just kill the thing. If you want to reform the process, let's have the Supreme Court involved at the beginning. And I know some of you don't want that because it means they'll kill it because they're the Washington State liberal Supreme Court. Fine. But at least then you don't have to waste all the money during the campaign. Listen to what the president of this union said when they were testifying for this initiative killer bill.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is DJ Breimer. I live here in Olympia. I'm a science teacher at Tumwater Middle School, and I'm also the Tumwater Education Association president. I'm here today on behalf of the Washington Education Association.
Wait a minute. Tumwater. Isn't that where there was a whole bunch of people that were attacking our friends like Brandy Cruz and a whole bunch of girls who wanted to speak about keeping boys out of sports? Tumwater. Oh, you mean where the teachers' unions were the ones encouraging them to go attack their own students? Ah, Tumwater. Now I know what we're dealing with.
To support Senate Bill 5973. Washington voters should be confident that if an initiative is on their ballot, they are being asked to consider a change in law that solves a real problem. But right now, anyone with enough money to bankroll their way through the initiative qualifying process can force statewide votes on any issue that's personal to them. To qualify for the ballot, sponsors must collect signatures from voters, and our state's current pay per signature practice incentivizes paid signature gatherers to use aggressive, misleading tactics.
Ah, Brian Haywood. Let's go after Brian Haywood. He's using his millions of dollars to get these initiatives. Ah. That's what it is, right? We know that's what this is. We don't like Brian Haywood. So let me make sure it's okay. Nick Hanauer, when he puts, $30 million into making sure there's a massive tax on gas, that's okay. That's fine. But Brian Haywood, I'll get you, Nick, my pretty. Like, that's what this is. That's what this is. Okay, first of all, let's do this. Here's what Let's Go Washington has to fundraise for and has to do when they're collecting signatures. And I've been involved in helping them. Number one, you have to get the initiative past the Attorney General. Is that Brian Haywood bribing his way past Nick Brown or anybody else? No, clearly not. Next, what do you have to do? You have to get this thing, you have to get enough signatures. Are there paid signature gatherers? Sure. But there's tons of other people collecting signatures as well. I'm one of them. Lots of you are listeners too. What, did Brian Haywood pay you to go out there? No. Do you know that every single one of these events I do for Let's Go Washington, I do it for free. For free. Nobody's paying me at all for any of this kind of stuff. At all. Okay? I support the causes I believe in. You want me to come speak at your event? You be in touch with me. If it's a fundraiser, I charge you. If it's not a fundraiser, I'll come and talk about conservative stuff all day long because I like to talk. Just buy me a scotch at the bar and we're golden. This is what the left is worried about because they're worried about Brian Haywood's been so successful, but they don't understand it's not because of Brian Haywood entirely. You have to go out there and get all those signatures. It's not just paid signature gatherers. You guys are working your tails off. I know tons of people who are doing this every single weekend. They don't get paid at all just because they believe in the cause. Then after that, it's got to go to the voters. You can't pay your way for that. You need a lot of money. You need like tens of millions of dollars, which is what Nick Hanauer and others did to defeat the initiatives. So you guys don't have a problem when the big money people are on your side. You just don't like when big money people are on the other side. I see. Now, paid signature gatherers, by saying they're aggressive and going out there and getting those signatures, I've seen the paid signature gatherers. No, they're motivated. There's a difference between motivated and aggressive. But here's something else. The left is now admitting that people who get paid a minimum wage don't put in as much work. Do you realize that? They want you to get paid hourly. So now you are admitting that the people who get paid per signature put in more work than the people who are paid hourly because an hourly person knows they're getting paid no matter what, and you've just disincentivized them. Thank you for making the case against the minimum wage. Thank you for that. Well done, everybody. Now, what are the other things they want to do? They want to make it so you have to collect 1,000 signatures before any of this, aside from the paid signature gatherer stuff. So you want us to collect even more signatures. What for? You're claiming there's not enough interest in these bills. When 500,000 people sign these things, clearly there's interest. When the people who object to your initiative killer sign up 10-1 in opposition, clearly there's interest. What other lies you want to spew?
It also enables wealthy interests like multimillionaire Brian Haywood to buy their way onto our ballots. The initiative integrity.
If I could, no personal attacks.
Oh, I
no
apologize. Thank you. The Initiative Integrity Act would prohibit paying signature gatherers per signature and instead move to traditional methods of compensation like hourly, salaried, or contracted payment.
All right, enough of you. I'm tired of you. Where's this other teachers union person I saw?
My name is Lauren Dandridge. I live and vote in the 46th District and serve as president of the North Shore Education Association. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 5973.
Whoa. North Shore. Isn't that Han-Tran's district? You know, the lady who really likes terrorist organizations? That's hers, right? Oh, there are a bunch of activists out there? Oh, shock me with that deviant behavior. All right, lady, let's hear what you have to say.
Washington's initiative process is meant to empower voters, but is currently being manipulated by well-funded interests who file multiple versions of the same initiative year after year.
Whoa, no, lady. No. We did the Parental Bill of Rights. And what happens is the legislature voted for it because it was too unpopular to leave on the ballot. Now they won't even have a hearing on it because they don't want to be marked yes or no on this thing. After it passed, that's when all the Democrats said, let's change this thing. Let's change the you-know-what out of it, so we have to go back to the status quo because you guys messed it up. All right, continue with your nonsense.
Shopping for the most favorable ballot title. This creates confusion.
Shopping for ballot titles? Do we get to do that? The Attorney General gets to do that. The Secretary of State helps with. We got nothing to do with that. All right, what else we got here?
Resources and undermines voters' trust in a process that should be about our voices, not about the wealthiest Washingtonians strong-arming their beliefs into law.
Ah, Brian Haywood again. I see what we're doing here. Brian Haywood. Undermining trust in the voting system. Oh, so you're for voter integrity. You're for opening up the voter rolls so we can make sure they're legit, right? Right? I'm sure if I asked you that, you'd be all about that because you're all about voter integrity, right?
This bill does not change the overall threshold required to qualify an initiative. Instead, it moves 1,000 already required signatures up in the process, ensuring a basic level of public support before state resources are used to process a petition. This encourages genuine grassroots organizing and allows educators like me to focus on initiatives that are likely to reach voters rather than dozens of hypotheticals.
Okay, great. I got an idea. Let's do this for every dumb bill you guys want in the legislature. In fact, Jim Walsh proposed this legislation. Do you know how many dumb things I heard when I was in Olympia today? How many crazy bills get filed just because people like seeing their name highlighted? The amount of crazy that's there is beyond belief. All right, how about to prove that your bill has public interest, get 1,000 signatures on any bill? I think we'd be able to spend a lot less time in Olympia. I think we could have shorter legislative sessions. This sounds great. I love this Jim Walsh bill. So what's funny to me is Steve Hobbs. Steve Hobbs is the Democrat Secretary of State. Steve Hobbs showed up to testify against this and basically debunked the left's entire point, all their points about this thing. He's like, yeah, none of the stuff you guys say is happening. So what problem are you trying to solve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, I'm Steve Hobbs, your Secretary of State in opposition of Senate Bill 5382. This bill is not needed, and it's just trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist. Just so everyone knows, the VOTWA system is very good. It communicates with other databases. It communicates with Social Security when we hear about deaths that happen, and when people change addresses, we update it pretty quickly. That's why the 1.2 million is in here, because now it's asking us to check these addresses. Now remember, we'll see the signature and we can match it with the database. We'll know exactly if you're a registered voter or not. Additionally, what we don't see in here is the cost of lawsuits that will happen when you have somebody, let's say, an overseas voter. When I served in the military, I had a armed forces post office. If they put that on there, it invalidates them. If you have a college student, maybe you have a senior citizen that forgot their address and put a P.O. box, it would invalidate them as well. This bill tries to get at a lawsuit that occurred where we prevailed, and it doesn't matter if this bill passes because the underlying Constitution of the state of Washington says you just have to be a Washington voter. And so I would ask you not to move this bill forward. And if you are going to do the $1.2 million, I would love it if you put my election security and civic engagement programs, because Governor Inslee budget invalidated both those programs. Thank you. I'll take any questions that you might have.
Now, Steve Hobbs called it exactly right there. Exactly right. Exactly right. In fact, Sam Reed, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Sam Reed, former Republican Secretary of State, was saying, yeah, this is nonsense. What are you guys doing?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of committee. I am former Secretary of State Sam Reed, served from 2001 2013. It's nice to see many of you with whom I worked with. More important than my 12 years as Secretary of State, I go all the way back to being Assistant Secretary of State in the dark ages, 1969. One thing I've learned being elected official throughout these years is just how much the citizens of the state value this right to be able to petition to change laws in the state of Washington. This is part of our political culture. This is part of our legacy. To start messing around and saying we're going to try to suppress the right of people to participate if they don't put in the right address, or if the person who circulated the petition, a volunteer or some part-time person, doesn't jump through all the right hoops, all of a sudden this person doesn't right to participate and the system is denied. This is wrong. We're better than that here in the state of Washington. I urge a vote no on this bill.
So basically right now you have bipartisan opposition to this thing. They're getting people testifying 10-1, registering 10-1 against this bill. Because even Democrats realize, hey, if Republicans ever win back Washington, whether or not that's likely to happen, we're going to have to jump through these hoops too. But also don't forget, over 60% of the people who signed the Let's Go Washington initiatives were Democrats, because that's the makeup of Washington state. Let's be clear about it. Democrats talk about voter suppression all the time. This is a voter suppression bill. And Democrats would not be pushing forward with it if they didn't think Bob Ferguson was going to sign it, and if they didn't think that the Supreme Court would uphold it, which is even worse. So, if you want to object to this bill, all you got to do is call 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000 and register no. Voice your opposition for the initiative killer in the House and the Senate. Even if you don't remember the number, that's perfectly fine. You know why? Because they know which one you're talking about. So say no on the initiative killer. Got to make sure we still have the initiatives in place, because the Democrats are petrified of it, because it has been the most successful way to push back on their insane programs. And by the way, while they're focused on all this nonsense they're trying to do to stop Republicans, they're not doing the basics. Didn't Bob Ferguson tell us to do the basics? When we come back, my friends, it looks like the employment numbers here are terrible and getting worse, just as the national ones are improving. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. Also, I have a personal favor to ask from everybody. My YouTube channel a while ago got nuked from the interwebs by YouTube. They restored some of the content, but I lost all my followers. Really bad. So I lost all my followers. I'm still trying to get them back. If you guys could go like The Ari Hoffman Show, subscribe to The Ari Hoffman Show on YouTube, it'd be very much appreciated. Plus, then you can see my receding hairline for yourself while you're over there. That's right. Check it out. And you can say, Ari, here's what you got to do to fix that. Get a hat. All right. Now, some of you over on the text line were asking for the bill number of the initiative killer. The initiative killer is Senate Bill 5973. Senate Bill 5973, and ask for its companion in the House. Okay? So that's Senate Bill 5973 if you're calling the legislative hotline. There's that one there. Okay. Also, over on the text line, this one from Bob in the 509. Ari, for over half a century, billions of taxpayer dollars have been spent under the auspices of Title IX. In an often questionable effort to equalize all things for women when compared to men, particularly in school sporting events. Now the WEA, SEIU, and controlling Democrats in one-party rule states like Washington and Oregon are making extraordinary efforts to essentially nullify Title IX under the auspices of transgender rights. Well, fine. Then I expect a full audit of all taxpayer funds expended on the effort since 1972, along with rebate checks for the taxpayers. Not an unfair point. With the Democrats, it's whatever way the wind blows, isn't it? That's basically what it is. Yeah, people got some really strong words about these union heads. This one here from a little bit earlier segment we did from Bruce, talking about how Don Lemon and his buddy stormed the church. Ari, a traumatized kid in that church should sue Don Lemon civilly. Yep, you can do that. No hiding behind the journalist shield. Discovery and any depositions are on the record and under oath. Yeah, he'll probably settle, and that kid's going to college. Wait, don't send him to college. Send something, have him do something else. Meanwhile, what's going on around here is even though the unemployment rate is going down nationally, it's going up here in Washington. This is bad news if Bob Ferguson wants to run for president one day. Washington State's labor market is trending down, even as employment conditions improve nationally. New data from the Washington Employment Security Department show the state's unemployment rate ticking upward at the end of 2025. Driven in large part by continued losses in tech-adjacent and professional service jobs concentrated in the Puget Sound region. The state's unemployment rate rose to 4.7% in December, up from 4.6% in November, marking a second consecutive monthly increase after holding steady. So this is fascinating to me, by the way, that this number is going up while the national unemployment is going down. Why do you think that is? How many layoffs have we discussed here on the show? We discussed Microsoft. We discussed Amazon. We discussed this new payroll tax bill that they have out in Olympia, which is going to tax these things even more. We all know this, right? We just had layoffs, more layoffs announced from Meta 2 days ago. Meta bailed on a campus out in Bellevue. Now, remember, everybody was leaving Seattle to go to Bellevue. Well, now they're bailing on Bellevue because they're bailing on the state. Why do you think every time we see the layoffs, they're here in Washington? Why do you think that is? Gee, can't imagine why all of a sudden your unemployment numbers are going up in Washington and down nationally. Now, here's something else. I didn't know about The Intentionalist. The Intentionalist is apparently a Seattle-based platform that promotes local and small businesses. Kind of weird name for it, but okay, fine. They have a new survey of independent brick-and-mortar businesses across the greater Seattle area. Revealed that many are struggling to survive amid falling foot traffic, rising costs, crime, government regulation, and taxes. Why do you think that is? Well, if you're laying off all the tech people, they got to find new jobs. And if a Microsoftie can't find a job at Amazon and can't find a job at Meta, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to leave town. So if they leave town, that means their barber loses a customer. That means their grocer loses a customer. That means their mechanic loses a customer. That means their bar loses a customer. And these things have an impact, especially when you look at South Lake Union. My God, the amount of restaurants and bars and barbershops and you name it that was popping up down there, and now the place is a ghost town. This platform that promotes local and small businesses, The Intentionalist, surveyed 136 independent brick-and-mortar businesses in late 2025. Respondents include cafes, restaurants, retail shops, salons, studios, and other neighborhood anchors across Seattle and nearby communities. 67% of business owners said they are under more financial stress now than during the height of the pandemic. Because you know the difference right now? You remember all those things your small business needs you? My favorite one was actually, you know that business you asked to sponsor your kid's soccer team all those years? They're calling in a favor. That's what it was during COVID. Support small businesses. Help your small businesses. They got really, really creative. Now, all of that's gone. You know what else is gone? All the subsidies they had during COVID. Now you're left with the actual facts on the ground. And what are the facts on the ground? You got more drug addicts than people walking around the streets in downtown Seattle. You notice more and more homeless people out on the streets? I have. I don't know if you've seen it. I walked to Seattle Center twice this week. I'm seeing more and more homeless people. Now, you might say, Ari, it's cold, winter. The holiday season is over. January is here. Yeah, but I'm seeing them more and more when I'm driving. More and more because they know Katie Wilson's not going to do anything about it. Most surveyed businesses reported worsening conditions over the past year. More than 70% said foot traffic has declined, while nearly two-thirds reported falling sales. More than a quarter said revenue has dropped by at least 20%. Only a small share of owners said customer demand is strong enough to keep pace with today's cost structures. Because if you lost a client and you lost a customer and the place down the street lost a customer also, you're still fighting for the same clients, so there's not enough of them around anymore. Plus, we've talked about how many small businesses closing. We've talked about what happened over at Pike Place with the Pike Brewery. We talked about the big box stores closing, Nike, Hard Rock Cafe, you name it. All these stores in downtown Seattle are closing. Also, working capital, access to it has become an issue because interest rates are still high. Nearly two-thirds of respondents said they have limited access to credit or financing because they've had to burn through their savings and their financials look pretty terrible, especially after COVID. Many are taking on more debt to keep their employees getting paid. Half of the surveyed businesses said theft, vandalism, or break-ins are affecting operations. In Seattle, what happened to Bruce Harrell's $5,000 your window gets broken? Wasn't that supposed to fix everything for your $20,000 glass pane window outside your business? I thought that was going to fix everything. Well, now they're asking for help again. And what they really need, they don't need a grant. They need more customers. But now you've got the tech companies laying people off. You've got the tech companies moving out. And you've got less people downtown. So as a result, what do you think's happening? And it's not just specifically to downtown Seattle. This is why the unemployment rate is going down across the state. Because Nike had to lay off their employees. Hard Rock Cafe had to lay off their employees. Whole Foods had to lay off their employees. Ross Dress for Less, when they close a store, has to lay off their employees. This is all because of the overregulation and because of the awful business environment, business atmosphere the left has created here in Washington. When we come back, my friends, holy cow, Randy Weingarten. That's right, that woman who wants access to your kids. She's in Davos, and the stuff she's saying is loony-toony. We'll also tell you what the Washington Democrats are doing to try and mess with your homeschooling options. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, anybody who's anybody is out in Davos, Switzerland. This is when all the elites hang out together and plot our collective destinies. It's like a group of discount James Bond villains. That's what you're looking at out in Davos. But a lot of people go there to get noticed. So who went out there? Randy Weingarten. You remember her? She's the Looney Tune head of the second largest teachers union in the U.S., and she has a new crazy idea for what she wants to do with your kids' education. Give a listen.
In the United States of America, we have 16,000 school districts. We have over 100,000 schools. There are industry partners all over. And you, Kiva, were the one who said, you can't keep on doing this industry by industry. You were the one who said, you can't keep on doing this governor by governor. How do we use the WEF to create this kind of integrated network so that we're all working together so that kids can have, from high school on, opportunities to have jobs that pay a living wage so that they can feed their family and nurture their family. And that is what happens in advanced manufacturing. So I'm honored that we are part of the creation of that curriculum, and we are all in.
Whoa. Okay, up until the end, a lot of you are like, what's wrong with this? A lot of you are saying, yeah, sure, more global opportunities, sure, train the kids in different fields, get them different languages. No. She's working with the World Economic Forum to develop a curriculum for the entire world. You know, what's that curriculum going to do? Talk about how great socialism is? Look, when you're in a country, let's say you're in Cuba, okay? Cuba's going to tell you socialism's great. It's not. You need people to come from Cuba in the boats they build out of 57 Chevys or old buses or whatever it is, or rafts, tell you it's terrible, but Cuba wants to teach you that socialism's good. You know what? I bet you most of Europe wants to teach you that socialism's good. In America, we teach you capitalism is good. Do you think maybe there's a difference here just in the United States about the education of kids who live in states that are more agriculture friendly than states that are more urban friendly? Maybe there's a difference because some kids have to adjust their school year because they work in the fields and they plan on taking over their parents' farm one day, and maybe they get a different kind of education. You want everybody to do the same education? That's dumb. What happens when you try to teach things in different languages? I know this firsthand. They had this idea because I went to a dual curriculum school. They had Ivrit be'Ivrit, which meant Hebrew in Hebrew, which meant you're going to get better in Hebrew the more we talk in Hebrew in Judaic subjects, in Bible study and Talmud study and all those classes. Well, you know what they found out happened? Kids like Ari Hoffman, who are not good at other languages, fell behind in all the other classes. You understand that? So maybe if you start doing this worldwide curriculum, you're going to have problems. But also, what's the world? What do they want to teach America? You know, Russia might not like America very much. So they're going to go with the anti-American mentality. I'm sure there's a lot of other countries out there that don't like America very much and probably don't like some other countries as well. So you should be asking yourself what the World Economic Forum wants to be teaching everybody. Yesterday, President Trump had some great lines regarding windmills. He hates windmills. And he was talking about how China is selling windmills to everybody else, but you don't see any windmill farms in China. Why do you think that is? Because they are a ripoff. Because they are expensive. They make money for China where they go, look what we can sell the Americans. It's like the guy who created the pet rock. The guy who created the pet rock is a genius. I can sell you a rock. I can put a rock in a box. I bet you that was a drunken bet. Yo, dude, I bet you I can get people to buy rocks from me. I bet you I could do it. The pet rock. And he made $1 gajillion off that in the 70s.
Do you know anybody who owned a pet rock?
Yes. We had one in our house. Now, it wasn't mine. I think it was my mom's from when she was a kid, and she took good care of it because it was in his little box and it had little bedding and everything. It was an actual thing that says pet rock on the side of it.
And that's part of the joke of it, right?
Yeah. You know, like a Tamagotchi, which isn't really a pet either. It's just a battery-powered stupid thing.
But at least it did stuff.
That's true. It beeped at you a lot inconveniently. That's what it did. But yeah, pet rock. It was part of the joke. You're in on the joke. For example, Michael Knowles' book. Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire. You know how we all know who Michael Knowles is? Do you remember the first time we heard his name? He was a producer for Ben Shapiro. And then he wrote that book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats, and it was empty. Who buys an empty book? Because it's funny. It's funny. It's entertaining, right? And then they had tried to have, and it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon and all these other things. Yes, the pet rock is much like that. But the Chinese are doing the same thing. They go, these wind farms never pay for themselves. You use oil to grease them. They kill birds, but the Americans want to buy them. Look, you think the kid who's working for 10 cents a day in a sweatshop understands why Kevin wants a G.I. Joe action figure or why he wants a Star Wars action figure? They go, why does somebody want this? The kid just wants food, right? And he goes, why do you want a little miniature person? I don't understand. And why do you want one with this stick that's green coming out of his hand? I don't understand why, but we'll build it because the Americans pay us. See?
I think by this time they know what they're doing over there.
Do they? You think so?
That's Luke Skywalker.
Okay,
they know
so
that.
they might. All right, we're making a little.
Come on.
But who wants a little Luke Skywalker that just sits on a shelf? I want one with kung fu action.
Yeah.
You never see that out of Kenner Toys, do you? Now you don't get no kung fu action. I haven't seen kung fu action out of them since the Karate Kid 2 playset. You remember all those guys with the karate? I wanted that thing so bad. My friends had it. I didn't have that. I always wanted that.
I had
so
a couple. They weren't so great.
Bad. No, well,
you weren't missing anything.
I wanted the kung fu action, and I wanted the play set. I wanted that Japanese village play set that they had. My life. Well, I'll tell you something. You may be thinking to yourself, well, great, this is only going to apply to the public schools. From our friend Corey DeAngelis, Democrats in Washington State introduced a bill coming after homeschooling families. It requires parents to tell the state they're homeschooling when the child turns 6, 2 years before compulsory education laws even kick in. Non-compliance can lead to criminal penalties. I got to ask a question right now. We all used to think before COVID the homeschool kids were a little weird. Now it seems like the homeschool kids are the only ones who aren't brainwashed. Now you go to the school and your kid gets brainwashed. You say, wow, really glad I didn't send my kid to that public school. Now they're coming after the homeschool kids as well. Guys, you're not safe anywhere. I've been saying this for a while. I've been saying just because your kid goes to private school, what they're going to do is they're going to make certain state standards. So you have to do them in private school. So you have to do them in homeschooling. You can't just say my kid's being homeschooled and check out. Not how this works. You got to fight for this stuff. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. We're going to tell you about an amazing event happening locally to raise money for a great cause. You're going to love it. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe to whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way, you never miss a minute of the show. Also, don't forget to rate and share. That way, your friends can be in on all the fun. Here on the Ari Hoffman Show, we always like to tell you about wonderful causes. And we have one that is actually coming up in February. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is our friend Bella Chafee from Alexander's Hope, who's the founder and president. And we are so happy to have you back this year to tell us about your amazing event.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on again.
Always a pleasure. So let me make sure I got this right. This is our Valentine's Day giving back with the Valentine's Day Dash 5K walk and run, right?
Yes, and it's on Valentine's Day itself for the first time ever.
That's amazing. So that's Saturday, February 14th. All right, now, I'm not much of a 5K person because I eat a few too many corn chips and cake and cookies. So can I just walk this thing? It'll be fine, right?
Oh, of course, of course. Most of the people that do it walk it.
Okay, just checking. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the organization itself?
Yeah, so Alexander's Hope, I founded it after my brother Alexander. He suffered from an undiagnosed and then misdiagnosed heart condition, and he ended up getting a heart transplant when he was just 19 years old. He was extremely fortunate to survive and walk the Valentine's Day Dash with everybody every single year. But after everything Alexander went through, we started Alexander's Hope to partner with the Nick of Time Foundation, which goes to high schools once a month and screens youths for undiagnosed heart conditions. So we do EKGs and echocardiograms, and we teach the kids CPR and how to operate an AED, which is pretty incredible. So all the funds from the Valentine's Day Dash go to support that cause.
Now, this is a thing I talk about all the time because I used to do a lot of work with kids, and I do a lot of work with nonprofits, and it is shocking to me how little people know about this. Maybe they took the CPR class, and they think, well, I took it in high school, so I'm perfectly fine. Most of them have no idea whether or not their institution actually has a defibrillator or any of that other stuff in it, and if it does, they have no idea where to find it in an emergency, and if they do know where it is and where to find it in an emergency, like what happened at my synagogue, they didn't know you need to charge this thing regularly. So these are a lot of the things that people need to learn about. What other kind of stuff do they learn through Alexander's Hope?
We advocate for organ donation awareness. So there's that more informational side, but the heart screenings are really the big thing. And this year, for the first year, so it's our 7th Valentine's Day Dash, and for the first year ever, we are having Medic One Foundation there that will actually be teaching people that wish to learn hands-only CPR.
That's amazing. I bring them into the synagogue every year because the youth counselors, I have them take it every single year. So tell us about the event itself. It's a great cause they're raising money for. Tell us what people can expect at the event.
Yeah, so the Valentine's Day Dash, it is a 5K run and walk. Strollers are allowed, dogs are allowed. The start and finish is at Bellevue Downtown Park. And then we'll go out on the streets of Bellevue. The roads will be shut down. And it should be a really, really fun time. We have the route is uploaded to our website if anybody wanted to take a peek at it. But it's a really good course. We got great feedback from it last year.
That's really wonderful. Now, at this thing, is there going to be a whole bunch of Valentine's Day stuff now that it's actually on Valentine's Day? I mean, are we talking about setting up runners at the finish line? What do we got for Valentine's Day?
Yes, there will be Valentine's Day themed things. We also are encouraging people to dress up. We had some really amazing Cupids last year that won the outfit, the contest. So there will be a contest for those interested, and some pretty awesome prizes will be given out to the best dressed. That's for both a human and dog.
That's funny. You just triggered me for a second there, Bella, because I remember there was this guy around our office for social media stuff. He used to dress in weird costumes, and he came in the full Cupid one day, and I mean full Cupid. Like, dude didn't have a shirt or pants on. He had whatever the rest of that was running around the office shooting arrows at everybody. Mr. KVI is smiling at me right now because he knows exactly who I'm talking about, what we're talking about here. Okay, I assume since it's cold and it's February, we're not talking that extreme, right?
Yeah, no, not that extreme.
Okay.
Not quite.
Just making sure. So that's the Alexander's Hope Valentine's Day Dash 5K walk and run, which is going to be February 14th. That's February 14th. You can get all the details over at alexandershope.org. It's going to be in downtown Bellevue Park. We do this cause, we promote this cause every single year because it's an important cause. And we want to make sure you guys support good organizations, ones that we vouch for, ones we knew do an amazing job. And that's why we have Bella back year after year after year, because we know it's an amazing cause. Bella Chaffee, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you spreading awareness of Alexander's Hope and our Fed Kit.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your good work. I'll say something else to our audience also, guys, is that if you have a cause that you think we should know about, don't give me like religious institutions, not because I don't like religion, but everybody's got a church or a synagogue or a mosque or something. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about big causes that are in our area, something like that, where there's a 5K, where there's a fundraiser. In fact, even if it's a smaller cause, if it's something that can help everybody, not just one congregation or something like that, otherwise I'd be promoting my synagogue on the air all the time. If it's something that can help everybody in Seattle, send it my way. Send it my way. You got an event coming up? We'd love to spread the word. We'd love to spread the good stuff. We spend so much time talking about what's wrong in the world. Maybe we could help fix a few things in the world too. So my email address, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. You send it on over to me. We are more than happy to talk about it. So make sure you send it on over to us, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. We'd love to talk about your cause on air. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including Donald Trump destroys the UN, NATO, everybody else at Davos, and Gavin Newsom looks like a fool. We've got that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, we got the audio from my trip to Olympia earlier today. We get to hear what class acts the Democrats are. But before we get to any of that, President Trump's trip to Davos was awesome. And I'll tell you why it was awesome. Because it's great to see America dominant on the world stage. You remember when Joe Biden used to go to these things like the G20 or any of these other summits? Joe Biden would get lost. Joe Biden would go in the woods. Joe Biden would try and get on other people's airplanes that are going back to Russia with hostages. I mean, Joe Biden was a mess. Seeing Donald Trump go up there and tell everybody what he really thinks of them, just amazing. This is how you get peace through strength. Everybody wants to be friends with the popular kid. Everybody wants to be friends with the strong kid. This is how you get peace through strength.
I just say this. NATO has treated the United States of America very unfairly. We never asked for anything. We never got anything. We actually took care of the needs of NATO for years and years, which I felt was always unfair. So I got NATO to pay because they're rich countries. But I think it's time that NATO step up. We're helping them with Ukraine. Without us, I think Putin would have gone all the way. I think we have it. I think there could have been a World War III, if you want to know the truth. If Kamala was elected or Joe, any one of those, those thinkers, I think you could have ended up in World War III. And I will say Steve Witkoff has been dealing incredibly with. But we're not going to have World War III. We want to get it stopped, but we're not going to have World War III. I think if I wasn't elected, I think that could have evolved into World War III. It was a very, very bad situation, and it still is, but it's not that kind of bad. It's bad because so many young people are being killed.
He's right about that. I'm not sure it would have been World War III. You know what I think it would have been? An endless war. Doesn't the left hate endless wars? And we would have been funding it. At least now there's a reason with the agreement we have with Ukraine to protect Ukraine, where we're getting something out of that country and we're getting a return on our investment. But he's right. NATO has to take care of NATO. Do any European countries give us money for the Golden Dome? Do they give us money for our military? The French work 3 days a week and they want us to pay for their national defense? Yeah, it's like that old Robin Williams joke, right? It's, we hate you, Americans. Hey, the Germans are coming. Americans, we love Americans. That's really what it's like. Why are we paying for this? Why? Also with the Middle East. How many people said we were going to get sucked into World War III in the Middle East? Now we've got the Middle East stepping up.
I mean, I think we have peace in the Middle East. There are some little situations like Hamas, and Hamas has agreed to give up their weapons. Now, they were born with a weapon in their hand, so it's not easy to do. When they were born with a rifle in their hand. It's not an easy thing for them, but that's what they agreed to. They've got to do it. And we're going to know, Jared, over the next 2 or 3 days, certainly over the next 3 weeks, whether or not they're going to do it. If they don't do it, they'll be blown away very quickly. They'll be blown away. We have 59 countries that are part of that whole peace deal. And some of those countries aren't even they're near the Middle East, but they're not in the Middle East traditionally. And they want to come in and take out Hamas. They want to come in. They want to do whatever they can. There's a problem with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we'll see what happens there. But that's a problem. But there are these little flames, but there's peace in the Middle East.
Do you know why they finally want to help with all this? Because they don't want they don't want the Palestinians getting kicked out and being sent to them. They don't want Hamas being sent to their country. They don't want Hezbollah coming into their country. That's why they never take in refugees either. Let me ask you a question. Who's been more successful for world peace, the UN or Donald Trump? Serious question. Who's been more successful for world peace, the UN or Donald Trump? Give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Talk about Iran. I mean, we used to have the U.S. paying for Iran's terror. Now we got something different.
When we talked about geopolitical concerns today, we also mentioned Iran. And I made the point that I never thought that Greenland, that geopolitical events would include an actual shooting war. Iran's a different case. It could be tariffs, which you've already announced for Iran. Could be further action than what we've already seen in Iran. Most people think that you probably prevented or the loss of I don't know how many lives for some of the protesters.
Thousands, more than that.
Was that the end of the story, though?
Well, they had one thing specifically that really got me. They were going to hang the old-fashioned hanging. They were going to hang 837 people on Thursday. And I told them, you can't do that. If you do that, it's going to be bad. I don't want to go exactly what I said, but nasty. And they canceled it, hopefully permanently.
But those tariffs are still on, including China. Has China responded to
sanctions?
25% for anyone who does business with Iran, and that will go forward.
Yeah, that's going forward.
That will go forward.
Now, here's the thing. We don't really know what's going on in Iran. I'm sure the U.S. government intelligence knows a little bit more than we do. But when they're admitting 3,000 people have been killed, the number's probably like 15,000. It's something like that. The numbers I'm hearing from my sources, it's in excess of 15,000 people have been killed because the protests are still going on. They've got the military out in the streets trying to put down that rebellion in Iran. That's what's going on right now. And the question is, are they going to fall? Is the regime going to fall or not? When I was out on the Capitol campus today, as I was leaving, and different groups come to protest on the Capitol campus. I see a protest group that's against ICE or something. They're marching down the street. I see a small group, about 30, 40, 50 people, who are all chanting for Iranian freedom. Are there any bills in Olympia about Iran? I see anti-Israel ones. I see anti-American ones. Now, mind you, I don't think the Washington State Legislature should be messing around in anything that's on a national or international basis because it's not in their wheelhouse. But if they're going to be messing around with all this stuff and passing a whole bunch of resolutions that don't mean anything, then why aren't you doing one for this? Why aren't you calling out Iran? They kill members of the LGBTQIA community. They make women wear burqas. These are anti-social justice people. And you don't hear one peep. Not one. The president, during his formal remarks, said this.
One thing specifically that really got me, they were going to hang.
Oh, wait, we did that one already. This is the one we're talking about.
First of all, last year you told me that you believe that the reason you won the election is because God put you in this place so that you could save the world. Looking back 1 year, do you feel like God is proud of the effort that you've put in?
I do, actually. I think God is very proud of the job I've done, and that includes for religion. You know, we're protecting a lot of people that are being killed, Christians and Jewish people, and lots of people are being protected by me that wouldn't be protected by another type of president. No, I think a lot of people are very proud of the job we've done. We've had an amazing year. This has been one of the greatest years. Even some people that wouldn't necessarily love me instinctively, they're saying this was an incredible year. We've had an incredible year economically. Look at our border. Our border was a disaster. People poured. It was an invasion into our country of a lot of very bad people, good people too, but a lot of very bad people from prisons and drug dealers and gangs and horrible people, murderers, thousands and thousands of murderers allowed into our country. And we now have the strongest border of any country. There's probably not a country, I guess North Korea has a pretty strong border, by the way, but there's not a country in the world that has a border like we do. And we took it from the worst border. We had the worst border in the world. Now we have one of the strongest borders in the world.
I do love where he talks about, is God proud of you or not? Seriously, he's done more for world peace than any president in my lifetime. I challenge you to name other presidents, and you can name, sure, after World War II or here and there, you can name a few more, but who's done more for world peace in the modern era than Donald Trump? What are we up to? 8, 9 wars that have been stopped? So what do we even need the UN for? Can we just defund it and turn it into the next Trump Tower or a homeless shelter or, I don't know, a parking garage? What do you think we should do with the UN? 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. President Trump called them out.
Do you want your Board of Peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
Yeah, I don't agree with him on that. I think they've had their run. Do you know why the UN was established? To stop wars after World War II. Yeah, they've done a bang-up job. Now, while President Trump was there, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Randy Weingarten, anybody who's anybody wants to be at Davos. Everybody wants to see and be seen, right? That's what they want to do at Davos. You know who's out there? Gavin Newsom. Why is Gavin Newsom in Davos, Switzerland? Does California need to be at this thing? No. He needs to be there as much as Jay Inslee needed to be there, which is not at all. That's right. So I assume he flew a private jet there. I assume that Gavin Newsom isn't flying commercial. You're going to talk about clean energy after you do something like that? What's he doing there? He's running for president. He's saying, I'm the alternative to President Trump. This is so he can come back and say, I spoke to this world leader. I spoke to that world leader. They want me to be president. They're tired of Trump because he's running against Trump, but Trump ain't going to be his opponent in 2028. And while he's out there, he's bashing America. Bashing America. This is him talking about Carney up in Canada.
So I respect what Carney did because he had courage of convictions. He stood up. And I think we need to stand up in America and call this out with clarity. We can lose our republic as we know it. Our country can become unrecognizable in a matter of months, just not years. It is code red, blinking red in the United States of America. So forgive me, I feel this with passion, some indignancy, as someone frankly has taken it for granted all of these years. And it's why I came here to Davos to call it out. And
so wait a second. You went to Davos to bash the United States of America. That's why you went. You went there to undermine the president while he's in the middle of negotiations. That's why you went there? How irresponsible. How irresponsible. You know what you should be doing instead? Hey, guys, America's great, but California, even better. Look at my... Oh, wait, you can't talk about how great California is, can you? You should say I'm a natural successor because I'm not as extreme as that other guy. But your record is absolutely terrible, and in fact, he got called out on it.
Look, are there problems?
For instance, you're supporting the mayor of LA for re-election after these terrible fires that a lot of your citizens do feel was in part because of government mismanagement. Do you just reject that narrative that the government doesn't anything to do with these things?
I absolutely accept that we all should be held to a higher level of accountability in terms of our governance. And I think there's many areas of reforms that are necessary, so many areas of reforms that were underway. We can get into the specifics of any one of these issues. But the general notion that in the middle of winter, with 100-mile-an-hour winds that were attached to a fire, that somehow, by the way, there were 16 major fires in Southern California over a 2-week period, that somehow that had to do with fire hydrants is rather preposterous.
What do you mean it's preposterous? There was no water in the fire hydrants. So if there's a fire, you put it out with water. If you can't fight the fire, then guess what it does? It burns more. Colossal mismanagement, especially since they were warned. Oh, wait a second. You want me to prove this was mismanagement right now? How many of those houses have been rebuilt? How many? What, like one got permits? One? The rest of them are all still burned out husks? Tell me again how this wasn't because of government mismanagement. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, very straight-laced guy. I've never heard him do anything like this before. But Gavin Newsom's antics were so extreme that Scott Bessent was calling him out. I even chuckled at this.
I think it's very, very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and the Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Thank you very much.
Let me know if you need any further clarification.
I don't think I've ever heard Scott Bessent talk like that before, and how straight he is. How straight he is that even when he's making a joke, you barely see his lips even curl up in a smile. Oh, that was gold. Pure, absolute gold. You know, if everything's going fine in your state, I don't think you should be going to Davos, but maybe I can understand you want to go there and be like, look how great my state is. Like, okay, my man crush, Ron DeSantis. If he went to Davos, I'd be like, dude, really? I mean, did you take time off for this or something? But at least you're there selling Florida. Look at your economy. Look at that. What's Gavin Newsom got to sell? Hey, you see this right here? This jar has ashes in it from the Palisades. Ashes from the Palisades. And we're going to sell it to you. We're going to give it to you. It's great. You want a souvenir from California? Dirt from California. That's what he's doing out there. He gets called out on it. And then he's standing there next to Alex Soros. It's dumber George Soros. It's just his son. The one who inherited all the money, didn't work for all the money. That one, who just gives money to any Democrat. You're out there? Oh, yeah, Alex Soros thinks you're doing a great job. Oh, fantastic, wonderful. This was about the elites. Now, what's funny to me is the contrast. President Trump should be an elite. He should be an elitist. This is a guy who's worth $1 gajillion. This is a guy, New York real estate, Trump Tower, casinos, supermodels, swimsuits. He should be one of the elites. Instead, he's looking out for the little guy. Why are none of the elites looking out for the little guy? Why is it Donald Trump? What, you think Gavin Newsom's looking out for the little guy? He was having dinner in the French Laundry while he was keeping all the little guy restaurants closed. That's Gavin Newsom. I know he's the front runner for the Democrat Party, for the Democrat nomination for 2028. How does he run for president with a record as disastrous as his? Well, I guess if Joe Biden can get elected president, anybody can get elected president, right? And when you look at a disaster like that, who would be surprised? A lot of people just go, oh, Gavin Newsom, he seems cool. I'll vote for him. People got to do more research on their candidates. When we come back, my friends, I went to Olympia to see with my own two eyes what was going on there and to testify on a bill that was very important to me. I'll tell you what it was when we come back and what the Democrats did to cut me off. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I love the texts we're getting. When I mentioned, hey, maybe we should get rid of the UN entirely, Wade texted us. He says, you can't get rid of the UN. Isn't the UN building Mamdani's new headquarters? No, he's got Gracie Mansion for that. Let's be real about that. John in Lakewood says, get out of the UN, stop funding it. Headquarters, it are some third world hellhole. Yes, exactly right. A lot of love from Becky in Enumclaw over for Scott Bessent. That's right. She says, Ari, you have just endeared Scott Bessent to all of us. That's very, very good. I like that. You guys are funny. You guys are funny. This one here from Chris. He says, I think a stronger point is that if there were any other president in history, in today's day and age with what's going on, how drastically things would have been different without having Trump. That's a fair point, too. That's a very fair point. We saw it with Joe Biden. How many wars started under Joe Biden? 7 in the Middle East alone. 7 in the Middle East alone because he was funding Iran. Just think about that for a second. Well, interesting we should mention that. I went down to Olympia today. Why did I go down to Olympia? It was for personal reasons. It was not for any of the big bills we've been discussing on the show. This one was for the things I care about. So Democrat leaders have proposed a memorial legislation for this woman whose name is Antsignor Ezgi Igi. I probably butchered that name, but she was a University of Washington student, and she was killed because after graduation, she flew to the West Bank to a town called Jenin, which is a terrorist stronghold, and rioted against the IDF. And when the IDF was shooting the rioters, a.k.a. terrorists, who were coming at them, she was in the crossfire. They killed her. They did an investigation. They admit it. Should she be dead right now? No, absolutely not. She should not be. But she chose to put herself in the middle of a war zone. She was ramped up by the things at University of Washington. She's a Turkish American, and she chose to go to a war zone. I don't choose to go to a war zone. When I go to Israel, I don't go to the war zone parts. I don't go to Gaza when I'm in Israel. That is not something I do. Okay? Well, also, I'm not allowed to because I'm Jewish. You're not allowed to go there. Yes, they're so tolerant. I mean, now there's a lot of Jews in Gaza. We call them the Israeli Defense Forces. What bothered me about what the Democrats did is they came up with a memorial bill for this woman, and they called for an investigation into her death. Israel already investigated it. They said, we did it. We're sorry. It's a tragedy. They want the U.S. government to now investigate this thing more. And they want a memorial for this woman. Here's my problem. She wasn't the only University of Washington student killed in this conflict. Chaim Katzman was a UW PhD alumnus and a peace activist. He was living on a kibbutz, which is basically like a socialist commune compound in Israel, when Hamas Palestinian terrorists broke into it on October 7th, 2023. He threw himself he threw his body in front of a woman and her children to keep the safe room door closed. He gave his life to save them. He was just living his life. He didn't go to an active war zone. He was living in Israel. Israel was invaded by Hamas, and he was killed. Nobody has called for an investigation into his death. Nobody has called for a memorial for him. And when I reached out to Senator Yasmin Trudeau, who's one of the prime sponsors on this bill, in fact, I reached out to all the sponsors of this bill, and none of them got back to me. She said, well, his death was investigated fully, hers wasn't. Guess who they were both investigated by? The IDF. So you want to tell me that one's more important than the other? Now, those of you who go, Ari, you're just saying this because she was on the other side. No. You want to have a memorial for her? Fine. I didn't go down there to say you shouldn't do that. I went down there to say, if you're going to memorialize one, why aren't you memorializing the other? And let me be clear. Chaim Katzman would not have listened to the Ari Hoffman Show. Chaim Katzman would not have listened to KVI. He was very, very different politically than me. I did not know him personally, but from all the things he was involved in, leftist, peace activist, I'm assuming he probably would not have listened to the show. That's just a guess. He didn't deserve to die. Didn't deserve to be killed when he was home for a Jewish holiday. That's what happened to him. So this bill that's going forward, I think somebody should speak for Chaim Katzman. I know some of his family. Some of his family goes to my synagogue. I know them. I know the family from being in town. And I think somebody should speak for him. I was pretty surprised when I saw on the con list. So when you go down to Olympia, They have these hearing rooms, and you testify. You sign in advance. You register in advance that you're going down there, and you get to say pro or con. You get to say if you're going to speak for or speak against a thing. I show up. It is a room full of a lot of people who I've talked about online. I don't just mean the people who are the senators behind the desk. I mean a lot of the local head of CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations, the unindicted co-conspirators in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror trial in the U.S., they were in the room. Rachel Corrie's parents. Rachel Corrie was another activist who went to Israel, stood in front of a terrorist house, got run over by an Israeli bulldozer because she couldn't be seen by the driver. My parents told me you don't stand in front of trucks or bulldozers. It's another case like this. I mean, every anti-Israel activist you can think of was in that room. I was very, very grateful that I got to be one of the first speakers. But what's interesting is when the Corries got up there, and we're not even talking about her daughter, when the Corries got up there to talk about her daughter, who was killed like 20 years ago, they gave them all the time in the world. There was a guy before me who I didn't know who was testifying against this bill. He was taking it more from the don't be anti-Israel approach. They cut him off. They cut me off. But the people who are for their little bill, they gave all the time in the world to. In this clip, you're going to hear a little piece of the guy before me so you can hear how Manka Dhingra cuts him off. And then you're going to hear my testimony.
And able to give some examples that I've just got 2 more points to make if you're able to extend the time.
Thank you. Just send us that email. We're happy to take a look at that. Go ahead, Ari.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I reached out to the sponsors of this memorial to ask why the bill only mentions one UW graduate and leaves out Chaim Katzman, who was killed by Palestinian terrorists while shielding a woman and her children in a safe room during the October 7th massacre. The only response I got was from Senator Trudeau, who told me that the facts of Chaim's death are well established and this young woman's tragic death was not meaningfully investigated. I would like to point out that both of their deaths were investigated by the same agency. But the sponsors of this bill accept the findings of Katzman's death, but not this young woman. Why? Because the IDF admitted her death was their fault, but unintentional. Here are a list of things that none of you have called to investigate. The Palestinian Chronicle, a Washington-based 501c3 whose journalist in Gaza was holding 4 Israeli hostages. An investigation into propaganda from Hamas that was distributed and sold at the UW campus. You have not called for an investigation into the targeting of Jewish students and the violent encampment at University of Washington, and you have not called for a memorial for Katzman. Since this does not include Katzman, I would like to take this opportunity to read a short letter from his Seattle family that was given to me to read here.
If you can email that to us, because we're out of time, that would be great. I appreciate you being here. And with that, we're going to...
She cut me off when I had a letter from the family. And Trudeau literally told me, if you had an appeal from the family, bring it, and we'll consider it. Cut me off with a letter from the family. Now, do people only get a minute? 100%. Did I know I hit my minute? Absolutely. There's these little lights there in front of you. But I figured everybody else is getting 90 seconds. Everybody else is getting 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Why shouldn't I? Because the Democrats realize when they don't want to hear what you have to say, they shut you down right away. They want to hear what you have to say. They let you keep going. It's no different with any other bill in Olympia. While I was down in Olympia today, I met a bunch of people who are listeners to the show just like you, who said, yeah, we're here to testify, but I didn't get to testify today on this bill. I didn't get to testify today on that bill. I'm trying to testify on this bill. We didn't get to. Because they don't want to hear opposition. You need to be as loud as possible. Anytime I give you the Washington State Legislature hotline, you need to call it. You need to talk about the bills you don't like. You need to go on their website and go, where's that bill I don't like? You need to register in opposition for it. It's the way you get heard. Decisions are made by those who show up, and we need you to show up. I was actually remarking to one of the people I was talking to down there. We're walking out of the hearing room, which is in a different building back to the Capitol, and I see the Capitol, and it's magnificent. It is magnificent. The Capitol in Olympia, one of the most beautiful capitals in the U.S. I said, it's too bad it's so beautiful because such awful things happen in there. You guys could be the ones who help stop the awful. That's what we need from you. Anytime I give you that phone number, anytime I give you a bill, we tell you what's going on. We need you to call a legislative hotline, and we need you to weigh in, and we need you to show up. When we come back, my friends, speaking of insane things that are happening on college campuses, it now seems like the average thing to do is just threaten that somebody's going to get kirked. You mean assassinated? Yeah, that's the new thing trending on campuses. I'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I actually think our friend Lars Larson is broadcasting from SHOT Show this week. Had some fun guests. I heard him talking to Harmeet Dillon the other day. So you should be definitely listening to Lars every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You know, when we were kids, we said, I'm going to kill you. I'm so mad at you, I'm going to kill you. Yeah, it's a lot worse than that now. First of all, you don't know if they're serious. Back then it was, whatever. Maybe we'll rustle around a little bit and then go drink a beer behind the gym or whatever it is, right? That's what it used to be. It's not like that no more. According to Fox News, a conservative student at the University of Utah who says a far-left agitator threatened to shoot him in the neck at a tabling event, slammed college campuses as a breeding ground for radicalism, and celebrated the arrest of the alleged perpetrator. Quote, it was January 12th. We were outside tabling. So tabling is when on college campuses you walk through the quad and everybody's got a table for whatever their cause is. That's what Turning Point USA does. That's how they get members. So I said we were outside tabling and engaging in debates in a format similar to those organized by, let's say, Turning Point USA. So the event was hosted by Reawaken USA, a relatively new conservative group that tours college campuses, inviting students to have open dialogue. So just before we get into the story of what happened here, this is something that happened to me. I'm in Israel. I'm in Jerusalem. And I'm walking down the street, and somebody's got a table that says, ask me anything. Okay? Two guys sitting there about my age. And I walk over. They're in the middle of Jerusalem. And I walk over. I go, this is a great shtick. You guys with Turning Point USA or something like that? And they go, no, we were doing this before Charlie Kirk got set. We just like to be out here. Ask us anything. I said, what's the most common question you get? They go, you think LeBron is better than Jordan? That's literally the question they get most often in Israel. And one of the guys goes, you're Ari Hoffman, aren't you? And I'm like, why? Yes, I am. Yeah, you listen to the show. He's like, no, dude, we went to college together. Nowhere. Me thinking I'm so important, thinking I'm so special. No, it turns out, yeah, we were in business school together, me and this guy. By the way, he knew. Like, he knew the teachers, he knew the shtick, he knew he knew. I don't know how the hell he recognized me with the hair loss. I had a glorious mane back then. Anyway, getting back to this, Beasley is a student at the University of Utah, the vice chairman of the Utah Federation of College Republicans. In an incident that was caught on camera, Beasley recounted that a liberal student began heckling him as fellow college Republicans, calling them Nazis, fascists, and pigs. We had other things we called kids. You can't use those words anymore. Then, according to Beasley, Dean Stewart, 21, invoked slain conservative leader Charlie Kirk's name in a threat to shoot him and others who were tabling. He said, and soon after he declared to us, you should die, followed by, I am going to Kirk you. Which you can only think that means I'm either using your imagination to going to shoot you or kill you. As he walked off, he positioned himself directly in front of several campus police officers, where he gestured with his arms in a manner mimicking aiming a rifle at us, thrusting them enthusiastically. As I'd say while shouting, you should die, calling us Nazi pigs, he continued, adding that the police watched the incident unfold. We said a different word when we didn't like something, right? We walk up to the table and go, that's, I can't say the word. That's a thing. It was used as a slur back then. Now it's used as a protected group, right? That's that and walk away. That's what we would say. Or we'd say, that's so the R word. That's what we would say back then, right? That's about it. Stupid. The Gen X kids really don't care about anything, or they just go and walk away, right? I'm the tail end of you guys, even though I'm not technically. I'm technically one of them geriatric millennials. That's what you would do when you found something stupid, right? Yes, no.
Which one are you saying?
Okay,
we would do the Gen X. I'm a little like
the first one is you'd say the first one you'd say that's.
Yeah, sure.
Right, you do that. Okay,
yeah.
You do that.
Whatever.
The second one is they're so blank.
Yeah, sure.
Right. That's
sure.
what you do. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I say yes. Yeah, that's probably true.
I didn't use it that often. I would usually just go morons or stupid was my word of choice is what I would do.
But also the Gen Xers are where we just can't be bothered to.
just walk right past it.
Okay,
get out of my way. I got other things. I can't be bothered. Very true.
I think what I think, and I don't need to try to convince you otherwise. And I would prefer you not try to convince me of yours. So goodbye.
Get out of my way. As long as you're not in my way, I'm going to walk past your stupid booth. Things have changed a lot since then. So another student who was present for the tabling event previously told Fox News that Stewart said he hoped the kids got kirked. Stewart was arrested just moments after making the shooting gestures. Both jail records and the University of Utah confirmed his arrest. He was charged with disorderly conduct, making threats, and disobeying a lawful order. On Monday, January 12th, Dean Stewart, 21, disrupted an event, yelled at a member of Reawaken USA that he was debating in front of Marriott Library. Stewart said he should be shot in the neck and repeatedly made hand gestures of shooting him with a rifle. The police witnessed this in real time, and immediately they moved in to apprehend the individual and detained him. Beasley, who was at Utah Valley University when Tyler Robinson allegedly shot and killed Charlie Kirk. Now, for those of you who didn't realize it the whole time, this is that campus. They take things a little bit more seriously there. Like, don't make a 9/11 joke in New York. Maybe with the younger generation, you can, but not my generation. We don't like them. I know the young kids like the 9/11 jokes. It's twisted. I don't like the 9/11 joke so much. But you're making this joke at Utah University? Bad move. Dumb move. Does bring up some freedom of speech questions. Does. If the kid had a gun on him, I'd understand. But this here,
I was just going to say, you're talking about 9/11. You know how long ago that was, right? And,
yeah,
I mean,
it's so long ago that my 21-year-old son makes the 9/11 jokes and he wasn't born yet, right? My 18-year-old son makes the 9/11. My daughter, my 15-year-old daughter makes the 9/11 jokes, and both of their parents, shall we say, are a little sensitive on the topic, but they like to see if they can make the joke at their parents. Yes.
Yeah, and what this other one happened like what? How many months ago now?
September.
It's just
October, November, December, January. Not even 4 months ago.
It's wild how the news cycle just moves, man.
Moves like that, just
Yeah.
like that. Like it seems like it was years ago.
Yeah.
It seems like it was 4 months ago. 4 months ago. Well, on that note, only good news to wrap up the show. Good news headlines put a smile on your face so we don't have to talk about political assassinations anymore when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And there's a story here in the Seattle Times. I think they're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show because Mike and I were having this discussion last week about who we thought should raise the 12th man flag at last week's game. Well, now the question is, who do you think should raise the flag at this week's game? And the Seattle Times, the headline literally is, Marshawn Lynch should raise the 12th man flag at the NFC Championship game. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Give us a text. Did it last week. I missed that part of the game. I have no idea. Hang on. Is it in this article here?
I think it was it Doug Baldwin?
I don't know. I really have no idea who it was last week.
But I think it was Doug Baldwin. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I missed the beginning of the game. So it wasn't Richard Sherman, though, right?
No.
Okay, so there you go. All right, so if it's Richard Sherman, would you like Richard Sherman instead of Marshawn Lynch?
I'm good with either one.
Oh, either one. We're good with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with either one.
Just checking. Okay. All right. So I want to know what you think. Send us a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. In fact, all the news we have today is local good news. Ready for this one? The iconic Pacific Science Center courtyard will now be accessible to the public, the nonprofit announced Wednesday. Pacific Science Center said to remove the north entrance gates and ticket booths on Tuesday. Well, let's be real. Is anybody going to the Science Center anymore? Look, the Science Center is one of the most dated museums I have ever seen. And we go there for the IMAX movies from time to time. That place has seen better days. In fact, when my wife was trying to show me how awesome Seattle is, she knows I love museums, and we go to the Science Center. I'm like, this is your Science Center? Holy cow. And that was in 2002? So that's 24 years ago. It has not improved with age.
Aren't they redoing it right now? Like they're doing a bunch of stuff to the inside. That's because, like they were selling off the dinosaurs that were in there. Like Zach was trying to buy like a tail.
Yeah. No. Zach wants the dinosaurs, but I don't think they have anything to replace it with yet. I think they're just clearing stuff out.
Yeah, I think they're redoing it completely. Okay. And I think while they're doing that, I think maybe that's why they have access to the courtyard. I think the courtyard's pretty cool looking.
The courtyard is pretty cool. The problem is, for those of you who've never been to the Pacific Science Center, you have multiple buildings. So showing your tickets at multiple buildings can be annoying. But then again, you have to have special tickets for the special exhibit in the special exhibit hall or the IMAX thing. It's not just, here's my phone, here you go, you're okay. Maybe now it's the phone. Maybe they've upgraded. Finally joined the 21st century. I remember when they had the Star Wars thing. Did you go to the Star Wars thing? That was pretty cool. It was the science of Star Wars. So you get in the little cockpit of the Millennium Falcon and you fly around the galaxy. And I'm like, excuse me, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. They would never fly around Earth. Thank you very much. Anyway, it was very cool. It was about robots. They had droids. It was very well done, actually. I
think the last time I was there was when I went to a Laser Dome show for Pink Floyd back in my 20s.
God knows what you would find on those little benches if you had a black light. Yes, the Laser Dome. I used to take the teenage youth groups there all the time. I knew what went on, but they were happy. Okay. Anyway, so they are apparently taking out the gates. You can go check it out. But did they get rid of the dinosaurs in the water out front, the stone dinosaurs? I think those guys are still there, right?
I don't know.
I have to take a look. We'll have to go check it out the next time we go there. But
last time they didn't have water in there, too, right?
Well, no, they always get rid of the water in the winter.
That's always in the winter?
They're always in the winter. They always do that.
I couldn't remember
time I know water. They do that because you're surrounded by concrete, winter, freezing, bad news. Let's not do that. But the stuff that's outside, I mean, it looks like it's still left over from the World's Fair. That stuff is. It probably is.
It is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Oh, it looks old. You know, I got a book on the World's Fair that I was reading. Memorial Stadium, they had water skiing in Memorial Stadium. It was part of the World's Fair. They filled that with water. It was like Gladiator 2 when you just bring in all the water for the stadium.
There's all sorts of weird fun facts about that World's Fair that I was like, I had no idea about. And I really should watch that. You know, there's that Elvis movie that takes place.
It happened at the World's Fair.
Yeah.
It happened at the World's Fair.
I've never seen it. So.
Yeah, I've never seen it either. I haven't seen most of the Elvis movies.
Same.
I just saw the Elvis movie. That's the most Elvis movies I've seen. Is the movie actually called Elvis, about Elvis with a guy who's not Elvis pretending to be Elvis? That is the Elvis movie I have seen. I know some people are yelling at the radio right now. Anyway, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, my friends. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more good news for you. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.